What's up, YouTube? This is Catastrophe Fix, first video ever, and it's an interesting discussion that I want to open up today: prostitution. Now, recently I watched all the films by the Skeptical Heretic, who I've been subscribed to for a long time, but never actually watched the videos. And I like his videos. Entertaining, smart guy, makes good arguments. I don't agree with everything he says, but I agree with a lot of things he says, at least in relative terms. And what really brought on this idea of like we should open up a discussion of prostitution is that I remember in one of his videos, it was a ponage of some sort, he basically said that he stood for the advocation of rights of sex workers. And that reminded me of this internal dialogue I've been having with myself over the past year, whether we should legalize prostitution or not. A year ago, I would have said, yes, people have the right to do with their body what they wish, and the government, nor anyone else, has the right to say otherwise. And I still have that sentiment. You should be able to have sex with as many people as you want. You should be able to do as much drugs as you want. You should be able to do self-immolation. You should be able to... Personally, I think people should be able to kill themselves, but that's pretty controversial when you get down to it. So I still hold that belief. Nonetheless, though, I still don't think that prostitution should be legal. And the reason I don't think prostitution should be legal is because, in spite of the fact that you would think that this is one of those things where it's the individual rights, it's not. And it's not because of the contract that is really involved. There's a monetary interaction there between the prostitute and the customer. And the way I see prostitution is akin to the idea of indentured servitude. If you guys don't know, indentured servitude was the idea that basically you would do labor for a couple of years under a contract signed by you and the person who essentially owns you. It was basically temporary slavery. And a lot of immigrants used this when America was being founded, Bacon's Rebellion. Hopefully you guys know what I'm talking about. Hopefully you know what indentured servitude was. Go look it up if you don't know what I'm talking about. But after the Civil War, indentured servitude was deemed illegal, along with slavery, because in essence it's monetary temporary slavery, essentially. And they had this fear basically that blacks who were recently freed under the 14th Amendment would basically revert to being slaves under indentured servitude. They would just return to their jobs because that would be preferential, and essentially they had been brainwashed into believing that it's serving a white, plantation owner is a good idea. And so they made that illegal. Of course, then they had to figure out that, then they had to deal with the black code laws, which essentially made it so that way slaves became slaves again after the 14th Amendment, after the Emancipation Proclamation. But nonetheless, the point remains the same, that they felt that indentured servitude is unconstitutional because it fundamentally stands against the free will of the individual. I would like to label myself an anarchist, but assuming that we are working within the framework and the paradigm of the state, because I'd like to think I'm eclectic in my political philosophies. I'm a Marxist, I'm a feminist, I'm a lot of other things, but I'm nomadic. Working within the paradigm of the state and the social contract theory, I think it's essential to understand that both indentured servitude and prostitution violate the social contract theory. And a lot of people have this misconception that being an anarchist just means that you're against the federal government or some shit like that. That just makes you a fucking libertarian if you're like that. A retarded libertarian like Ron Paul. But I think a true anarchist not only stands against the state government, not only stands against the federal government, but it also stands against tyrannical actions of individuals. In the market, like a Marxist, I would say that Marxism is in many ways anarchism, but also the idea of going against slavery. I think that an essential aspect of anarchism is going against slavery. Now, an anarchist like Robert Nozick, although I think he might be libertarian, I'm not sure, would indicate that no, you should have the right to sell yourself into slavery. That's retarded, because there's no way you can delineate between saying that people should be able to sell themselves, use monetary value, wealth, to sell themselves into losing their free will, essentially. I mean, not free will, but like will to do with what they wish. And so the idea of indentured servitude in prostitution, I would think, would go along with this idea, basically. Basically, with prostitution, you are allotting your body for temporary reasons for making money, and that's a problem. In the way that, you know, a lot of people say, well, what about pornography? Here's the key difference between pornography, prostitution, and any other form of employment. Pornography and all other forms of employment is the selling of a commodity by another person, right? You aren't selling, you're selling the video with pornography. You're not selling yourself, and that's the problem, is that the idea of indentured servitude, the idea of prostitution, the idea of slavery is that you aren't providing a commodity, you aren't providing a service, you are the commodity, and you are the commodity. It is the problem. That's the biggest problem. A lot of people say that they're against prostitution because they're anti-adultery, and that's retarded bullshit, but I mean, that's the only reason prostitution is illegal now is because, you know, this like Christian moral, you know, monopoly that there exists in Congress, that's always existed, which has said that adultery and shit like that is bad. But yeah, I think that not only should prostitution probably be deemed unconstitutional, even if the federal government wanted to legalize it, but it stands against the very fundamental idea of the social contract theory. You cannot have a functioning society where some individuals have sacrificed their ability to take certain actions free of their own accord. Oh, here's another interesting thing. You know how basically Walmart can't say fuck black people, we won't sell stuff to them, right? Why wouldn't that apply for prostitution? Why wouldn't it? A woman, or man, I guess, doesn't matter. Prostitutes can be man or woman, might only like a person of one gender. I know one race, right? Maybe you are only into white guys, or maybe you're only into Latinos, or maybe you're only into black people, Asians, whatever. But you're a prostitute. I would contend that if Walmart has to provide service to all people, regardless of their ethnicity, their gender, and their sexuality, then so too should prostitutes, if prostitution is to be legalized. And that's problematic. It's problematic because that would amount to state-mandated rape. If somebody does not want to have sex with another person for reasons of race or whatever, that is rape if it's forced upon them. So prostitution is a mucky issue when you get down to trying to institutionalize it. Another problem is that I keep hearing these arguments that basically prostitution should be legalized because it'll help women get out of poverty. Fuck you. Because I don't know about you, I don't think that a prostitute is making a lot of money even if it was legalized. And that's a retarded argument, and really what you're doing is degrading people and saying that the way to get out of your shitty life is to give up your freedom, essentially. That's the exact same mentality that they use for indentured servitude, but now, that's exactly what we're doing. Another issue, state making a profit off of this. The federal government, or the state government, or the local government, any form of government that has taxation should not make a profit off of the use of your body. Okay? Now, a lot of people say, what about modeling or bodybuilding? Fine. Yeah. That's a bad thing. I think those things, that people should not strictly be made money for that. Now, if they're selling, again, it goes back to that whole thing of, like, you have to draw the line somewhere between, are you the commodity or are you providing a commodity? So I guess you could say that fashion and modeling, you're selling the aesthetics, but you're not selling aesthetics with prostitution. You're selling your body. You're selling the use of your body temporarily. Yeah. So, but the federal government should not make money off of the use of your body. I think that's the worst kind of like authoritarian thing. And I know the arguments in support of prostitution being legalized because I used to be a person who advocated that, and I'm still kind of on the edge. Like, for example, the idea that if we legalize it, we can deal with sex trafficking issues and things like STDs. True, I agree. I do think that there needs to be reform in law. The same way that a person who would want to go indentured servitude, let's go back to that, or slavery. If somebody was to voluntarily go into indentured servitude right now, and somebody else to take it to court, essentially, both individuals in the contract would get punished. However, it's the party who is willing to actually hire this person who will get in more trouble. And so for prostitution, you're right, prostitutes should not be necessarily penalized for using their body to some degree. It should be more focused on the felony part should really go on the person who's trying to hire a prostitute. Being a prostitute should probably be a misdemeanor, if that makes sense. So yeah, that's just my discussion. My opinions on this. Feel free to contribute. Skeptical Heretic. I know you didn't talk about this a lot, and that's exactly why I wanted to open the discussion. But anybody can talk about this open discussion. Thank you.